Right, welcome to our panel today, kia ora koutou. And yeah, that's it up on there. Oh wow, Kickstart Your Career, Education Pathways into Games. So I just want to say thanks to Sage for hosting us today. And in terms of the session, so it's just about pathways. It's not plans or perfect plans. There's multiple ways into the games industry, and we're here to talk about a couple, not all of them. And it's going to be quite a guided conversation, so no audience Q&A, sorry. But we've got some really good questions that hopefully will help answer some of yours. Yeah, Chad just said we're going to be around afterwards. He's going to be around afterwards to answer any questions, so come and say hi. So, panellists, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves. Why don't we start on the far end?
Put me into it. Hey, how you doing? I'm Steward von Itzstein. I'm a academic at the Adelaide University now. Used to be UniSA, and I teach game design. Previously, I worked at the Defence Department doing command decision environments, which is a bit like real-time strategy games. We create visualizations of battle spaces and stuff like that. So there's a lot of game skills that came in through that. And yeah, so at the moment I'm teaching game design at Adelaide University.
Hey everyone, I am Jacqueline Burgess. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. So that's about an hour and a half north of Brisbane. I teach marketing there for postgrads and undergrads. And I also do a lot of research looking at marketing in the Australian games industry. I've worked with a variety of partners and I'm currently wrapping up a project with Screen Australia.
And hi everybody, thanks Dr. Sam. He's an honorary doctor for today because we didn't want him to feel left out. My name's Chad Habel. I am the head of faculty for graduate programs and a games producer trainer at the Academy of Interactive Entertainment. And I'm also a production director at Bad Plan Studios. Our game is called End of Ember. If you haven't heard of it, go check it out. Or maybe not because it's gross. And thanks for having us.
And I'm Sam, I'm from Superglue. If you can tell, I'm not from here, I'm actually from New Zealand, so thanks for having me. Lead me into the country, Chad. So we don't have much time, so I'm just going to kick straight into it. What we're going to start with, so is it pronounced VET or VET? VET. Okay, cool. See, not from here. So VET.
We forgive you.
Thank you. VET versus higher education without the hierarchy. So that's going to be our first sort of area. And I just want to prompt you and guide the discussion. So when students ask whether they should choose a VET pathway or a university degree, what should they consider first, ignoring sort of brand names and rankings?
No. Thank you.
This is a
I'm going to get in trouble because half of us are from VET and half of I think you can go either way. You can start at a VET provider, you can start at the university. My experience is I've seen a lot of students go into the game industry. Some come through directly from high school straight into university. They do a program with creative industries or with IT, studying the part of game design they like. And I've seen quite a lot of students, when they finish the degree, go, I really want to concentrate a set of skills in this particular area. And then they go over to VET to pick up some of the skills they want to add to their CV. And I think no matter which way you do it, the really important thing is to build a history of your development, a portfolio. So I will keep coming back to this because this is the thing I keep telling my students is build a portfolio of all the things you've achieved, no matter which pathway you take. Because if you go for a job or you're talking to someone, they say, well, show me what you can do. And you've got to be able to give that to them straight away. So from my point of view is you can go, some people prefer to go through VET style providers. Some people like to go into university, and I don't like saying straight into university because then there's the assumption that you always end up there. Not everyone ends up going through that pathway. And pick what teaching and learning style that fits you. And you look at the providers and say, how do you teach, and look at the way they do it.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I think sometimes places have, certain reputations and certain, names, but that doesn't actually tell you about the experience that you're going to have in that institution. Particularly in Queensland, in a regional area, a lot of people move that hour and a half south to Brisbane because they think that's where the named universities or institutions are. And so many of them, because it's such a culture shock in terms of different location, different living. Like, we don't catch buses on the Sunshine Coast. I'm like, what do you mean I have to pay for park? Could you explain this concept to me, please? Although we do have 50-cent transport now, so that actually is pretty cool. But it's such a kind of a culture shock. And then also going to some of these bigger institutions where you can have hundreds and hundreds of people in one class, you know, people then bomb out and kind of move back home. So like, brand is not everything, reputation is not everything. You want to have a look at what's the environment and also kind of what's your life, you know, and what's going to be a life that you can lead. And I think VET can give you some really specific practical skills, which is really, really great. And in certain paths in the game industry, you do want to, you know, say specialise and be kind of really good and have that really deep knowledge in one area. Other pathways, though, in the games industry, you might want to be a little bit more of a generalist, or at least have, in addition to having some specialist knowledge, having kind of more general knowledge. And I think we're going to talk about some of those other pathways a bit later. But VET doesn't necessarily then give you some of that broader sort of knowledge that a university degree can, that, you know, rather than just specialising in game art or programming, a university degree is also going to really touch on a lot of other aspects of game design and touch on a lot of other skills that are going to make you much more well-rounded. So putting them together, as Stewart said, can be a nice combination.
Yeah, I would say that there's a common kind of distinction between universities, higher education being academic, meaning you do lots of reading and you use references and things like that, and you write essays, and that VET is more practical and you're in engine and using tools and things like that. I don't think it's that simple though. I don't think it comes down to that. I really support what the others have said, in that something I've learned recently as I get a bit older and crustier is that the things you think really matter actually don't matter as much as you think they do in retrospect. I learned this through parenting, actually. The things you stress about, like, oh, VET or higher education, do I do a degree or a diploma? Actually, the more important thing is the experience, right? It's like, do you have a good relationship with your trainer or your teacher, your lecturer, tutor, whatever it's called? Do you like the classroom? Do you vibe well with the students? Are the facilities good? The contact time, right? Does that suit you? So a big distinction, I must say, between higher education and VET is that in higher education, you'll go to often you'll go to a lecture for 1 hour a week, maybe do a tutorial or a workshop for 2 or 3 hours a week. Maybe you have a lab for maybe 6 hours or something like that. And that's your kind of contact. So you have a lot less contact. At higher education, it's much more independent. But at VET, you do 9 to 5, 3 days a week. That's what we do in AIE. And that is a difference of experience. So what works better for you? Do you need a really structured environment? Do you work really better independently? And what I say to people is, I also do karate. That's another part of my life. And what I say to people, it doesn't matter if you want to do a martial art, it doesn't matter if you do karate or Taekwondo or Wing Chun or boxing. It's like, find a dojo or a gym that you like, and a trainer or a sensei that you like, and a community you can be a part of, and then vibe with that, because that's where the learning's really going to come from, not like a label like VET or HE or whatever. That's what I'd say.
Do you reckon there's any kind of students that clearly thrive in one pathway or another? Like, thinking about myself, hands-on learning is really important, as opposed to what you're talking about, like, the lectures and things like that.
Yeah, I think universities have tried to move away from the sage on the stage lecturer type thing. So we're moving a little bit towards the way VETs are done in some way, that you're in the classroom. And I know my previous university and the new university, we're trying to get students in the classroom more than we used to, rather than less, for the reason that it's a good experience, right? And I think some vets, and I wouldn't say all vets, but some vets are very hands-on, stand behind you, and very much like a high school. And that might be a learning style that you need when you first get out of high school to just transition. And if you feel that you need that sort of hands-on person behind you, pushing you, maybe the vet pathway is a good one. With the universities, we tend to be a little bit more, here's a great idea, go and implement it. Come back and ask us if you've got a question about it, but we want you to explore the space, and it's a little bit more you exploring the space and getting the skills that you want to get and the way you want to approach it. And again, the universities are moving more that way as well. So I think it comes back to what we said before is, look at these spaces and actually see if they're if the way they teach suits you, right? And I know I've done both vet. I did vet for electronic engineering and I've done university as well. And different parts of my life when I was younger, I think actually vet was better for me. But when I got older, when I had more a picture of where I wanted to be, the university was a means to an end to me, and I took from the university what I needed, and so different psychologies, I think.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think university is going to suit those who can be a little bit more self-directed in terms of their learning. We're definitely moving away from the sage on the stage. At Uni SE, we got rid of lectures years ago. I can't remember the last time I did a lecture, honestly. Pre-COVID, I think.
Exams are next.
Well, actually, we don't have exams in my marketing major.
Where the heck was this when I was in university?
So I'll say, in the courses that I run, my assignments are marketing plans. Do lots of research, come up with a target market, come up with ideas, come up with practical ideas based on evidence to actually run marketing, because I teach marketing. So, and I think that's something that a lot of universities are moving towards, and I think there's some kind of outdated notions. Universities work really closely with employers. They have industry advisory bodies and so on. So going to a university doesn't mean you're going to be divorced from practical hands-on or going to be divorced from industry. That's a really, really core part of the university experience.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself
Sorry.
as well? Sorry, Chad.
It's okay.
Chad can go first. He was here first. Oh, hi. I'm Dr. Lauren Woolbright. I teach game design at Flinders University, and I run the games research lab at Flinders. And I'm sorry I'm late.
I was going to say, though, I had an interesting reverse experience from Steward here. I started at university, and I think one thing is about diverse pathways and different ways of getting into the industry. And I look like a guy who might have been in the games industry for 30 years, which is not true. It's been about 4 years, actually. I started at university. I didn't know what I was going to do in life, and I liked English and reading books and talking about them. So I did a major in English in a Bachelor of Arts. I went into honours, still didn't know what I was doing, did a PhD, became a doctor in English, and then worked in universities because I liked teaching and bumbled around until I was 44, and I finally got a job at AIE.
Sorry, just so you know, if someone has a medical event, do not ask any of us.
No.
Yeah, don't ask any of us.
I have a Shakespeare quote for that, yes.
I can tell you about marketing, and the healthcare system can't save your life.
So I think that the synergy of the two is like a really interesting thing, again, in karate, you have a traditional style or a sports style, and actually blending the two and bridging across the two is probably the most productive thing to do. And you've got a long time to do that. But the biggest message, I would say, the take-home message, if you get one from me, is there's no one way of doing things. Honestly, it took me ages to get around to being in the industry in the way I am now. So, if you really do what suits you and pursue your passion and work at it, then, your goals come to you in strange, indirect ways.
That's actually a really great transition. Thanks, Chad. I want to talk about sort of enterprise skills, technical skills, whatever you want to call it. Lost the question. So what kind of enterprise skills would most strongly influence whether graduates or non-graduates succeed in this industry at that entry level?
Yeah. So I think it depends on what is entry level to you. What do you want to do in the industry? Do you want to try and get into one of the established studios? Do you want to start your own studio? You're going to have some different skills for those different pathways. If you're wanting to start your own studio, you're going to basically need to have some business skills because you're going to be running a small business. You're going to be looking at bringing on freelancers or contractors or maybe hiring people. You're going to need to set up an ABN, how do you actually start your business? How do you do your market research for your game idea? What is your marketing communication going to look like? Can you write some persuasive information and grant applications or Kickstarter? Can you talk and pitch to a funder? Can you talk to people that you might meet at events like this? So that's kind of going to be a set of skills that you're going to need to successfully run a business, as well as having all of those nice, warm, fuzzy social skills so people actually want to work with you. Not to mention then like time management as well, because your odds are you're going to probably for at least a while be working on your game in your spare time while also working some kind of other job as well. If you're wanting to go more into a studio, then you're going to be wanting to be able to like sell yourself and have some of your deep kind of technical skills and be able to demonstrate your expertise with that portfolio that Stewart mentioned. And either path, you're also going to need like good networking skills. Like the games industry in Australia is pretty small. People know each other, you know, word gets around. You want to be able to form genuine connections and relationships with people, which then might help you. And you also want people to think you're a good person. You don't want someone thinking that you're a bit lame. For instance, in a location in Australia that I'm not even going to say because it's so small it'll probably reveal the people that I'm talking about, there was someone who wanted to get into the games industry and they were put in touch with a developer who was working in this space that had a pretty cool game that did have some funding, and the developer was like, hey mate, we're working on this game, you want to come on board part-time, get some skills, get some experience on a game that actually has money and is going to launch. And this wannabe developer was like, oh, I don't really like your game. I don't want to make something I don't like. It's like, okay, first of all, way to not seize a brilliant opportunity. Second, that story was told to me. It's probably going to other people in the industry as well about that wannabe developer. So that's kind of how reputations and relationships form or not form. So you're going to want to manage those.
I can share a very similar experience. I built the games design degree at UniSA, and we had final year projects, and I worked with a lot of companies around Adelaide to get positions for their final projects. And more than one occasion, I had the companies send me emails saying, "Do not assign XXXX to any projects involving my company or me." And a couple of times I went back and said, "Look, why?" And they said, "Oh, they're all over social media. They say the worst things, and because they're all circulating in the same, things, the same social media things, they remember." And they go, "No, I don't want that. That's a person who will cause too much trouble for us." So there's I know in our university we talk about creating your brand, which this is really more your area, but it's creating a personal brand, and that starts quite early about how you present yourself to the wider world on social media as well. And so that to me is a really key skill, is packaging yourself. And the portfolio is part of that. What you say to other people, I think of all the nasty things I've said on social media. I think, God, I hope no one sees it. But it is this full package of everything about you, and people will talk about it. And I've seen a number of cases where people have told me stories, and I'm thinking, who else knows this story, right? So build that. I don't want to make people scared. It's just, be your best person and present that to the outside world. Okay. And then I think a lot of the stuff, I agree with you that the technical skills are great, but they're just a small part of the pie. It's all the other stuff that comes around that creates the complete product for someone else, I think.
Sorry, I'm just going to actually add that goes for any kind of career that you do. I've worked in security services, and I know people on social media that have done similar things, and they have not received jobs because of what their hiring managers saw on social media.
Yeah. Lock down your social media. Like
Clean it up, really.
Clean it up, yeah. Like I know places, not just in games, where you're doing the interview literally at the same time as the assistant or the receptionist or someone else in the business is Googling you and looking through your social media, literally to prepare a report back. I've also seen instances where someone was a little rude, a little dismissive to the receptionist or the assistant or the person who, bought them in. And yet, guess what? That was the sister, daughter, wife, partner of the person interviewing you. Like, just you're toast. You're gone. You're done.
Or the boss just really doesn't like people treating co-workers badly. And if they hear that, it's like, no, don't want them anywhere near us. And that's a good boss. Yeah. That's someone I want to work for, actually, is someone who will look after the highest to the lowest person in the company.
I want to take what you all are saying and actually extend it back to Sam's question, which was about the technical kind of skills building, because what we're talking about is communication in all its various forms. And I think that even on the level of developing your technical skills and having to work in a team with others, which most of you are going to do, if you make a game solo, you're going to lose a lot of sleep and be really, really stressed out. Just watch any postmortem by any developer who's done a solo game. It's crazy.
Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley
Case one.
is absolutely the case in point. And so, like, communication within your team is just as important as your external communication, whether that's about your game or with networking. So being able to communicate what you need to each other and understand all of the roles that are at the table when you have artists and programmers and writers all sharing space and trying to create one final product. You really need to be able to articulate what you need and understand what other people are saying to you. So, like, the communication goes both ways. It's both the listening and the active communication. So.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that no one has said the word soft skills, because I have a rule against that, and that's why enterprise skills is in there. Because soft skills are not soft. They're actually very hard. Yeah. They're hard to teach. They're hard to learn. And absolutely agree with all of that. But there's another piece I'd like to talk about, and that is around mindset. There's a whole bunch of kind of ephemeral stuff or like vague stuff about just your general mindset, like the way you approach the world, your perspective on the world. And it's things like adaptiveness, being able to adapt to different conditions, resilience, being able to face failure. With Endovember, I cannot tell you the number of times I've applied for a grant, yesterday I sent out 250 press releases, and I got like 2 responses, and your relationship to the world, things like this. So this is all captured in mindset, which is quite hard to define by definition. And in adaptive leadership, mindset is not easily changed. You can't do a course. You can't come to a panel and learn how to change your mindset. The only way to do it is to get out of your comfort zone, which takes a kind of bravery. So the number one thing I'd say is do the thing that makes you uncomfortable. If you hate public speaking, try that in a way that's like safe enough, right? If you don't want to learn a technical skill, or you don't want to do something on social media or create a LinkedIn post or whatever that thing that freaks you out a little bit or scares you, go and do that. Because when we went to pitched our game to a bunch of film and TV producers in Melbourne, I was not comfortable with that. I could tell you, I don't know a thing about film, and I'm going, a game, we'll make a TV show out of it. No, but I was like, okay, time to lean in, because this is the thing that makes me uncomfortable, and this is where the learning will happen. And we're lucky, we got an outcome, we got an options agreement announced yesterday, hooray! But I learned so much because I got out of my comfort zone. So that bravery is probably the most important thing to help develop that mindset.
I actually want to add something to that. I hate public speaking. When I was a student...
Oh, it shows.
Yeah.
What are you doing here then?
When I was so nervous about, when you do those presentations in front of your class and stuff and you're sweating and stuff, that was me. And at some point I thought to myself, every time someone asks me to do some public speaking, I'm going to do it because I can only get better at it. And so I've always had this rule, if anyone asks me to do a public speaking thing, I'll do it because it's not my comfort zone. And so I've got better at it each time that I've done it. And that's the reason, because I went out of my comfort zone. And I just sort of when you talked about it, had this flashback to, that. So.
I'm really glad that someone else doesn't like public speaking here. I'm very similar. This is why I host the panels. So I just want to move into career types and what they really require. So, and not all game careers are really aiming at the same sort of destination or the final spot. But maybe, Lauren, let's start with you down there, not to put you on the spot or anything. How do the expectations change if a graduate wants to start their own indie studio versus joining an established studio?
That changes quite substantially, actually. And Jacqueline already talked about this a fair bit. If you're going to start your own studio, you need someone on the team who's business savvy, and it doesn't have to be everyone. Like, every person on the team doesn't have to be able to do all of the things, but they do need to understand how all of the things need to come together in order to make that happen. But you do sort of put different kinds of pressures on yourself if you are doing your own studio. Obviously, you're going to get a lot more creative freedom, and you're going to get more say in who is on your team and who you work with. But you're also going to have to do your taxes. And someone else is not going to handle HR and some of those other complicated aspects of things. Somebody on your team has got to feel like they can do that, or you're going to have to go it together and figure it out along the way. Whereas joining an established studio, you have to sort of figure out the culture of your new workplace, just like anywhere. What are the expectations? What are people like? Who's good to work with? How do you bring your skill set meaningfully into the existing projects, or how do you push, nudge your boss to maybe give you more opportunities in the direction you actually wanted because you sort of took a job that was maybe slightly to the side of your comfort zone. So yeah, the expectations are definitely very different. And so when you're applying for jobs, you're looking at a specific defined role generally, and you need to, of course, meet the qualifications for that. But once you're there and everyone is sort of working together, there's a little bit more malleability in a smaller studio than at a larger one, where they're going to kind of want you to stay in your lane and do the thing, and maybe you're programming this one character and that's all you're going to do for the whole game development cycle. So you better love that, or at least be able to get through it so you can get to the next project. But in smaller teams, you get more of a chance to sort of play across and develop different skills than you had before. So it's very different for sure.
I think on that as well, there's going to be different types of continuous learning if you're founding your own small studio. Like, you're going to be applying for grants, you're going to be, pitching to publishers and so on. So you're going to have to engage in some professional development to figure out actually how to do that. Some university degrees, if you go through that, have some business skills, some vet do, not a lot. I know I've looked into over 100 of them, and there's not a lot taught there. University is going to give you probably still wider than some of the vet will in that case, but there's still going to be some continuous kind of lifelong learning if you're founding your own studio in a different way than if you're going into an existing studio where you're going to be expected to still continue to develop, technically as well.
We're one of the places that does do games business, because that's my bag. That's the whole thing. That's the third year of study for us. So what will happen is, and I'm not trying to fly the AIE flag, but,
Admit it.
Yeah. So what you do is you do a diploma, advanced diploma, and then an optional graduate diploma. Your diploma or advanced diploma is in art, programming or design, or maybe VFX or filmmaking. But in the main game disciplines, you can then go into a graduate diploma of management learning, which is what we run, which is a whole year of business. You know what a lot of people go? Oh, I don't like broccoli. And it's like business broccoli, that's kind of what I say. A lot of people don't want to do it, but some people do. And what happens when they come into the games business program is they go, oh, wow, there's so much to do. There's a business plan. There's a bit of finance. Oh, Excel spreadsheet. Oh, there's this and that. And then they discover that, oh, hang on, when you go and start your own indie studio, a Maya license to do 3D sculpting and modelling costs $2,000 a year. I can't afford that. Oh, I can't afford Adobe. Adobe is extortionate in their pricing. Yeah. And so in the third year, people start going, oh, wow, I have to start learning Blender and Armor Paint for texturing and all these alternatives, which enhances that kind of adaptability as well. So even the technical skills that you learn, you might come up through a program using Unity or Unreal, and then you want to get a job somewhere and they use the other one, and so you have to be able to adapt to that. So I like the games business piece. That's cool for me.
I think one thing I've noticed is that, and it sort of goes back to the first question about pathways, is almost everyone I've met in games, they've come from a different spot. They've come from literature, they've come from business, they've come from software engineering, and you don't necessarily end up staying in that stream. As you find what you like doing, but there are professional skills that underlie all these. And even if you're not doing that, you still have to be able to practice some of those skills. And I think the one that you were talking about pitching, a lot of company or a lot of people who are paying for these things, they want to meet the team And so you can't just send the pitcher. You've got to send everyone, and they've got to be able to communicate at least enough to get people confident that your team can produce. And I think it's building that image around that, I think, is a big part of that. So the skill sets are, you can't put everyone, even in a big indie studio, there are people who are, I'm the music guy and I'm the 3D engine, coder, or, but they still have to have this underlying set of skills that go across the whole thing to be able to pitch things.
And just on that too, in an indie studio, there's sometimes a feeling that, oh, I'm the music guy. I don't need to know about the business or whatever, But like, if you're a small studio and your continued existence depends on getting like a certain contract or agreement or whatever, it's probably good that you kind of understand that and understand the ramifications and how all of that works. So even if you're not going to be the founder or the leader or the business developer or whatever in the studio, it's still important you kind of understand how some of that works.
Yeah, it's so funny because we're sitting in the SA Film Corporation here. They hold the purse strings to a lot of the funding in this state. And so, that ability to make connections. There are SAFC people walking around this building and, connecting.
Hi, Petra.
Hey.
There you go. Hey.
Know
Got some
people's
money?
names. Be kind to them.
Got any spare money?
But, that ability to communicate and stuff, those skills are so important. And just be a person that someone wants to talk to, right? Because that conversation in the corridor, and I think most of my opportunities in life are conversations in corridors where someone said, I like this person, I'm going to tell them about something I know. And they're like, oh my God, there's an opportunity there that I didn't know about. They wouldn't have told me unless they'd connected with me. So that communication skill, I think, is absolutely vital.
Just to add on to, no, that was great. I think that's a really good point to drive home. The first person, so I'm a recruiter for Supergirl, obviously. The first person I actually placed for an art role is someone that I met at GCAP just randomly, the very first person of the day. And we had a conversation about animation, and then they needed some help looking for work, and I was able to find a role for them. So it really does, help just being able to get out there and talk to people in the hallway, at conferences like this, being able to reach out on LinkedIn or email, like be everywhere, and people will remember you, usually.
And this is why we teach know your audience early and often throughout your educational experience. We're constantly referring back to the audience because you need to know, if I'm pitching to SAFC and they're film people, how do I convince film people that my game is going to be good? Like, what can I assume about what they're going to know or think about games? What are they going to value about games? So this is in your grant writing, in your networking, in your pitching. All of it matters. Who's in the room, who's listening, and it always kind of pays to feel them out before you make some big grand statement. Who am I speaking to and what's their perspective? So, feel out the conversation before you lay it on them. So.
Can I ask the audience a question?
No. Yeah, you go on then.
Who in the audience has or is making something? Making a game, making some art, I don't know. Making a level in Fortnite Creative, made something in Minecraft
it all counts.
or whatever.
That's a lot of you.
Yeah, about half the people in the audience.
And that's really the most important thing to do.
Yeah.
I would also say we're here for education pathways. There is also a non-education pathway as well. So my co-founder Dan, who does all the art for End of Ember, he is not trained in game dev at all. Marcus knows him. He's crazy, right? He has all these friends who are game devs, and he was looking at them and going, "Oh, you should do this in your game. You should do that." And they're like, "Oh, it's not that easy, man. Go and make a game yourself if you want." And he's like, "Okay." Laptop. What should I use? Unity. Ding, 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 ding. YouTube. How I make video game in YouTube. And then he said to his programmer friends, "What should I?" You'll love this, Stuart. "What should I do if I want to learn programming?" They said, "Go and learn about scriptable objects." And he's like, "Okay, how to make scriptable objects." And he made game. You know, he made this prototype that was totally broken on the back end, but it made me go, oh, that's cool. And he was like, what do I need? I'm like, programmer and a business guy. And then we kind of came together. So, you know, the learning you do outside of formal education is actually almost more important, because one of the biggest things I see from students and graduates is they go, oh, I got the qualification, now where's my thing, right? I got my degree, where's my job in a AAA studio? You know, like finish third year, GTA next, you know? And it's just not how it works, because, you know, there's like, I hate to say this, but the job market, this is why indie's great. You don't get paid, but you get to work on games. Because the job market in games is really, really hard. I don't want to be depressing, but I don't know if you watch the news, but the number of layoffs that just constantly happens everywhere. There are and you would know this better than anyone, there are mid and senior people who are being laid off and have massive experience. I talked to a guy last week who, he worked on Baldur's Gate. He worked for mod.io. He worked on the middleware, the modding software, the user-generated content stuff for Baldur's Gate 3. And he worked, you know, and this is like a dream thing, and he couldn't get a job for 18 months, you know. And so with people like that, juniors coming through, it's really, really hard. The one thing that will make you stand out is going to a job interview or talking to someone and saying, hey, here's my portfolio. Here's a passion project. I've done 12 game jams in 12 months. They call it 12 and 12. You know, I published a game. I put it on Steam. I figured out how to get something on Android or iPhone, or have a look at my itch page, or, you know, I did this thing which is above and beyond my basic formal education, and that makes studios go, oh, this person's really passionate and resilient and tough and goes above and beyond. So everything that you're doing in making stuff counts. Document it, collect it into a portfolio. And I know Stewart's going portfolio. So.
I totally 100% agree. If you think about the number of students that are graduating from our two universities and then AIE, and then you multiply that by all the other states, there are a lot of students coming through all the degrees, no matter what your discipline area is. And when you leave university, if you've just done the minimum at university, you're the same as everyone else. But if you've got a differentiator, and I'm using some of your
unique selling proposition.
Unique
USP,
selling proposition. It means that they look at you and you get shortlisted. You get an opportunity to talk to someone, right? And then it's up to you to sell yourself with the other skills we were talking about making connections, right? So that's the two things you need to get through the door to talk to a human being, is the differentiator, the unique selling, what was it?
Proposition,
right? And then the skills to keep the door open.
Yeah, no, I just want to very briefly add to that, you know, because we're at universities, you know, and people kind of get through, you know, passes and whatever, and that's great. You've got your bit of paper, but for such a competitive industry like games, like the bit of paper is not enough. How are you going to set yourself apart? How are you going to build that brand? To go back to Stewart, you know, how are you going to use your portfolio and your passion and your projects? That is what is going to help you in this competitive market. That's going to give you a little bit of a step forward, an advantage.
So just to lean back in on something Chad said, as a way to do that is do game jams, right? There are lots and lots of them going on. If you go to itch.io, you can find one anytime. Right now, we're about to start one in the Games Research Lab at Flinders. So you need someone on your team who's currently at Flinders or is a Flinders graduate for this one, because we're keeping it small, but we have prize support and there's gonna be an expo. So if you can find somebody, but also stay tuned, because our lab runs regular game jams locally that you can come to the kickoff event for and get some food and meet some people, or you can join the virtual event and get match made with your skill set, with someone else's skill set, or around a cool idea that you've got. So like this is happening locally, not just at Flinders, but elsewhere as well. And then if you make something, you should go to Game Plus and show it off, do a playback session and let people actually play that thing. So that's the getting outside your comfort zone. Like, I made a thing, I think it's pretty cool. Will anyone else think it's cool? And like, probably the more you think about going to an actual playback event and watching someone play and fail to play your game because it's broken, might be terrifying, and probably should be a little bit. It's okay. Just know that these are welcoming spaces where failure is a learning experience and not a setback. and that you're only going to get better the more you put yourself out there and try. So yeah, game jams are great because it's like, here's 4 days. You are going to throw yourself into a project and then it's going to be done. And you will have that for your portfolio, have that experience, and have those relationships that you've built with people you probably didn't know before you started the jam. And so like, keep an eye out. Those are ongoing.
Another good way in is modding as well. Like, many great programmers have just come into the industry just doing modding projects. Like, you love Doom, make it, use Doom Builder. Like, make levels in Doom. The tools out there for modding are incredible, and the more you do, the more you learn about code, and that can really supplement that as well.
I don't know if you know, but Chad is a bit of a Doom fanatic. He doesn't have any tattoos for that. Sorry, Stuart, I've got to cut you off because we've got to keep moving on.
Yes, sorry.
Internships. I know that this is a bit of a topic of discussion yesterday for us, wasn't it? But I want to ask you, and I know it's a little bit of a weird one legally. But
Not at all.
Not at all? Okay.
People think it is, but it's not.
Let's talk a little bit about those. Are they helpful?
Can I? Yeah, because I'm also the Work Integrated Learning Coordinator for AIE Institute. So I that's why I know about these things. So sorry to jump in. Internships are like, everyone wants one, right? It's like, oh, it's great. It's going to be how I get a job, right? So, so I can't like graduate with a bachelor's and then work on GTA 6, but I can graduate with a bachelor's and then do an internship on GTA 6, right? Oh, great. That's cool. It's just not that easy. It's quite hard. And so one of the big challenges, I think Stewart would agree, and Jacqueline, anyone who does internships knows that getting companies to want to take interns is really hard.
Who wants amateurs?
Who wants amateurs? Who wants juniors?
Amateurs you have to supervise.
You have to supervise. And yesterday in the IGA roundtable, we were talking about the overhead. And this is actually something people don't realise. Even as a junior, if you just get a straight job as a junior in the industry, you're basically a liability for about 6 months. It takes about 6 months before you get up to speed and you start earning your salary. So it's actually like almost charity that anyone takes a junior on. And the problem is people come out of a degree going, oh, I graduated, I'm a graduate, yeah, I'm going to make games. And they think they're something when actually they're in a bigger pool and kind of not. So internships are, if you can get one, it's great, but it really should be a vehicle for you to develop all of those enterprise skills. And the way we're developing our internship program is we're treating it like a job application. So we're saying to people, do your portfolio. We've given them lectures on how to do job applications and things like that, portfolio reviews. We're going to be judging your portfolio. You're going to, judging your portfolio. Yeah. We're going to get you to write a cover letter. You're going to have a resume. We're going to show your portfolio. What have you made? What have you done? How can you talk about your skills? We have a studio who needs someone to do a marketing plan or work on a project that maybe not be your perfect thing, but how can you think about a project and skills that you have that will meet that studio's needs? So for me, internships are about building those enterprise skills and that resilience and the networking and communication and all of that sort of thing. And internships, the thing that people think is gnarly about internships is that there's a thing about studios. A lot of people think that you can't work on real projects or commercial projects because it's somehow illegal. That is not true. You, in voluntary work placements, you can work on commercial products, but the overall benefit of the situation needs to accrue to the student, so it can't be broadly exploitative or whatever. And you can't, and you can get paid for internships, but that's an employment relationship, which is a separate thing. So you can't mix the two. You can't be like, oh, you'll do a voluntary work placement, but I'll give you $20 an hour. I'll give you $20 a week to work 10-hour days. That's not how it works. The two things are separate. So I've got a lot to say about internships, but I'll let someone else have a go.
Look, from the point of view of universities, a lot of universities will have a capstone project at the end of there. It's not quite the same scale as an internship or even better, an apprenticeship. But it is an opportunity quite often for you to go out and work with industry or do some project with industry. And I know a lot of my students who've done those capstones have found opportunities because they've exercised those skills that we talked about earlier. So there are other opportunities. Internships are really tricky, the same with us, because they're bigger and they're more embedded in the organisation, where capstone, you might visit the organisation once a week and then have a conversation about it. So there are other options as well. The other one is on social media, connect with the industry in your local state. So in South Australia, I was thinking about when you were talking before, the Screenshot Saturday. You know, there's all the indie game developers in Adelaide. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them will go in there and put screenshots of what they're developing. And that's a really good opportunity to go in there and put positive comments so your name starts popping up. And then when you go to is it once a month? I think they have a catch up. Yeah, once a month, yeah. Yeah. So they have a once a month catch up. You go along and just talk to people and don't big note yourself. Just go along and say, look, I'm really interested, and people will take you under their wing and they will remember you. And then when an internship or an opportunity comes up, they'll go, I met someone at that networking event. So it's building that relationship.
So we sort of do a combination of the things that Chad and Steward have been talking about at Flinders. So I teach in 2 different programs that are games related. One of them is the game design program, where that's pretty much the focus of what you're doing. But then the other is visual effects and entertainment design, VED, in Flinders, and that program has a close relationship with CDW Studios, and by close I mean they teach our second year and first year classes. So like you are being taught by industry professionals who have wicked portfolios and are just immensely talented. You have them on like available to you on a one-on-one basis if you want, right? After class, ask them a question. So the VED program really builds on that, and so you get the academic and the industry perspective the entire way along. In the game design pathway, we finish with a games incubator class, and so that's a collective one project. So everybody pitches their idea and then you make one. Our pitch from last year is actually on the floor here at Sage today. It's called Attached, and you should totally go check it out because that team gelled and they made a cool demo. They showed it at AvCon, they're showing it here, and they're sticking together past graduation to make that project a reality. So like cool stuff is happening. And so this year what we're doing is learning from that experience and creating almost a studio kind of model for our students where we can have our strongest projects get support from people who are across the curriculum, right? So you could work on a project in third year and in honors, and you can get funding to stay on after. If you get the government NEAS funding, you can stay on and continue working on your project. And as long as only students work on it, that IP is yours. It's only Flinders if we have to contribute significantly to it, which we would try not to, right? We're in an advisory capacity, but we really want to support our strongest projects to completion. And that's not just games, but also animation projects and other cool stuff that's happening. So.
Can I just say about Attached? I love that game. I saw it at AvCon, and Shane pushed them a bit to go to AvCon. Has anyone been to AvCon before? Do you know the event? Yeah, all right. So I'm going to be the indie games manager at AvCon next year. Bring your game. It's good. We want play test games and stuff like that there. But they were like, Shane was like, you should take this to AvCon. And they were like, anyway, do it, it's great. And they came along, and I was so impressed because, and I'll remember Jian, because it's like, they got out there. That was definitely out of their comfort zone. They did not feel ready. They really took that leap and took that step, and it was great. And then Shane is one of the most wonderful human beings in the industry. He created all these, he created little dioramas for them and did pictures to help decorate their booth and everything.
Like little 3D guys from all the characters and stuff.
Yeah.
Right, we're probably going to have to wrap up. I'm getting some eyes from over in the corner. But I just want to finish up. Can I finish up? Can we just? Yeah, sweet, cool, thanks. I just want to get some practical advice from each of you. Keep it short, otherwise I get my head chopped off, please. What's one habit that consistently improves employability in the first few years? One habit.
Be a nice person. Like,
that's a pretty good one.
Be someone that people want to work with and spend time with, and don't want to claw their eyes out at the thought of going to work with you.
I'll add build your portfolio, because you need that.
I would say build your confidence, right? And part of that is what we've been saying about pushing outside your comfort zone, but don't approach this as feeling like you're lesser than or your game isn't good enough or any of that. Just show it. Just talk about it. Go out there, talk to people. It's all good.
I would say build connections. We haven't talked about networking, but I will say networking is farming, not hunting. So, the benefits of networks accrue over years. You're not going to find someone that's going to give you a job tomorrow, but over years, your networks will build and become very valuable. Start that out.
And just to add to that, like, everyone you see up here has been in the industry a little while. If you're just starting, don't feel like you have to be awesome at networking or have an awesome portfolio to start with. It comes over time. So don't pressure yourselves into thinking that you're not good enough, because you probably are, but you just need to give it time to build your skills. Like anything else, animation, programming.
Start simple.
Start simple. That's
It's
great.
a work in progress.
Yeah.
All of it. All of us.
Simple but fun.
Yeah.
And take walks on the beach and hug your friends.
If you want. Right, thank you very much for coming along today. You've been a pleasure to host, all of you. And if you have any questions, we'll be here for a little while. Yeah, cool. Chad doesn't have to run off. Come on down and we'll have a chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Sam.